Good morning. Okay. Found it and pinned it. Hi, Kelly and Kathleen and Penny. Thank you guys for joining me today. Hi, Julie. Good morning. How are you? A little chilly here today. Hi, Donna. When I went to let the dog out this morning, I always walk around in bare feet. I'm that person. Hi, Suzanne. Good morning. Nice to see you up and early. And I actually was getting foot cramps because it was so chilly because it rained and it was cold last night. It was like 47 or 50 something. Hi, Brene. I missed somebody else there too. Sherry, Becky. Thank you guys all for joining me today. So this card, which you can't really see, so I'll show it to you more when it dries, but look how pretty. This is the one we did with dipping the blends direct into the alcohol. Isn't it beautiful? I love it. I think it's super pretty. I did take a picture. I'm still working on my blog post. It's 56. I know it was like 60 something this morning here. We did go for a long walk, so it was really nice, but I started out with my sweatshirt. In the sun, it's not bad. Oh my gosh, and you have 101. That's crazy. Meanwhile, it was really hot here last week. I mean, it was almost like oppressively hot because of the humidity. But you're on the road again, Cindy. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm singing some Willie Nelson. 44. Wow. Yeah, so we get Ohio's weather like a day later. So, haha, crazy. So anyway, this one turned out really pretty, and I still am working on the blog post for it because I wanted to try to title the colors that I used for the pictures because I took photographs of the cards that we didn't finish yet. So this one, and then the other one wasn't quite dry, so I took a picture. I bet you Brene is probably in Arizona or something, I bet. Or California, because I know it's been really, really hot there lately. And then this one, in case you missed it yesterday, this is the one we actually created, which ended up being really fun. So this was using Oh Snap, which is retiring. So today I have, and I'm so proud of myself. Colorado. Holy cow, my dad and my brother are in Colorado right now. I wonder if that's where they are. They're close to Denver. 118 in Phoenix. Holy moly, that's insanity. So my brother's getting married. So my brother and my dad are in Colorado. And yeah, the Vellum did turn out great. So I wonder if you guys are close. Wouldn't it be crazy? So I have my glossy cardstock. You can see it's shiny. Again, I said, you know what? I have a piece of it. I wonder how quickly I can find it. I should have gotten this out yesterday. But you know me. Because I have photo paper. I'm just looking in the area where it is to try to will myself to remember. Let me see if it's in this drawer. Hang on one second. Well, I know I have photo paper, but photo paper doesn't quite hold up as well because I think it is more so that this glossy cardstock is a little bit heavier than photo paper tends to not deal with the water. Even though I know we're not using water or alcohol, it doesn't seem to deal with it quite as well. So I have my dog here. Hopefully he'll behave himself. He's chewing on one of his babies. That's what we call them, babies. Hopefully we won't meet any real babies. And he'll be like, oh, baby, can I chew on that baby? He chews on us enough as it is. So we're going to go ahead and get started without any further delay. I don't really know what... Oh, and here was the other one. I totally forgot about that one. That was the first one that was kind of a fail from Monday, and then we redid it again. So we're going to get started. And I'm going to go ahead and flip you down. I have 3 pieces of glossy cardstock so we can see what it looks like. And I think what I'm going to do, because I still have this handy, is I still have my alcohol. So I think I'm going to try the blends direct first. If I want to do the blends direct first. No, since I can scribble. I'm going to scribble with them. Then we'll bleed it. And I have the Wink of Stella pen, and I also have my water painter. And then we'll do the blends direct just to see what the difference is. So I'm going to go ahead. You had rain overnight. Is that good? I'm glad for you if you're glad. We had rain all day yesterday and the day before. We had, wasn't so bad though. We did have that really bad storm a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to flip you around. If you're happy that you have rain, I'm happy that you have rain. Okay, so if you get a little motion sick, just look away for a minute. All right. Pardon me, and we're all settled. So we also did, as demonstrators, get to see the new holiday catalog last night, which is super exciting. I always love seeing the holiday catalog. I love it for all the little extra goodies. And you know, by me, extra goodies are saying like papers, or let me back that up a little bit. Papers or embossing folders, tools maybe. You know, I love all those things. So this one I just cut in half. No. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to go sit somewhere else. You play with your baby. Leave Christian stuff alone. So these are a half sheet that was cut in half. And then this one was just a little extra piece I had. So, Jack, no. Psst. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and I'm going to do the same thing. I got the Calypso Coral, and I'm sorry I'm using these colors over. I'll do a different color combination for this one, because I was using these because they were older, so I just kind of dipped them directly into the alcohol that's still out from yesterday. And let's see. How about if we do some pinks? So we'll do some pinks and some greens. So this is Magenta Madness, dark polished pink, and all these are going to be dark unless I tell you otherwise. This is Lovely Lipstick, which I know this is retired, but maybe somebody still has some of these. That's why I'm kind of pulling them out. And let's go with is this Blackberry Bliss? Rich Razzleberry. Wonder how that one still works. Rich Razzleberry. And then I want to just bring in one kind of a blue. I really would like to do Pretty Peacock, but instead I'll do navy because I know this one is still available. So let's try that. So let me do these, and then these I'll save. We'll just try this. I'm going to save this one for last since it'll be kind of like our accent color. So it definitely smooths on here a little bit better. That was Rich Razzleberry, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Rich Razzleberry, because it is glossy. That was Magenta. Then we have Polished Pink. Then we have Lovely Lipstick. It's kind of funny too, because thinking these are all pinks, and they all do have a lot different of shading. And then finally, I'll bring in the Dark Night of Navy, which is really, really dark. In case you've never used it before. Dark Night of Navy is almost so dark, I don't think I use it very often. I usually use the light. So I have my alcohol. I'm going to move these over here for a minute. And I'm going to just use my regular painter brush. So I'm just dipping this. Just make sure it's clean. And I'll just pick a color to start with. Ooh, look at that. So, Glossy Cardstock is not really spreading very well. Well, this could be our little test right here, because it's not spreading. I wonder if it's because of the glossy finish. Could be. So, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to try it the other way. It's definitely not really spreading. So that's good to know. Let me try. I'm going to try some of the blue. The blue is a little bit, but okay. So there you go. So now you know not to waste your glossy cardstock on this. Now, in case, just as an FYI, which this is a whole nother setup, so I don't have this available to do because it does take a little bit of setting up, but nothing. But with glossy cardstock, in case you never knew this before, what you can do, I'm going to move these off to the side, and we'll try this with a different vellum. What you can do with this is you can do wax paper, which this sounds crazy, but it's a wax paper resist. And what you actually do with it is you crumple your wax paper up into a ball, like a really ball. I thought it would totally react differently too. Casey, you're not the only, I'm sorry, Karen, you're not the only one. But you crumple it into a ball and then you lay it wax side down onto the glossy cardstock. You take a low heat iron, and then you also have to have something in between. Now, one thing I will tell you, because one time when I did this, I accidentally, I melted my microfiber towel. But what you do is you'll take like a tea towel, so this is like a cotton towel, and you'll lay it over, and then you iron it. And what it does is it transfers the wax from the paper to this. And then once it's cooled, you can ink it, and it makes really, really neat backgrounds. That is a super cool technique to use around Halloween, because it makes really cool Halloween cards. But so there you go. So before we totally just throw this to the wind, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can, just because I don't want to waste another piece if I can help it, I'm going to dip from the blend to the paper. So I'm going to do what I did yesterday. So I dipped the blend into the alcohol. Now it definitely does spread a little bit better. And let me just take a look when I had that, since it was wet. So spreading. But it's still not really spreading like it was on the vellum. Yeah, so I kind of thought maybe that would work, but nope. It's staying kind of in the squiggle space that it was. So not really doing much. So at least we learned that lesson. Ooh, regular ink. Look at you. Look at you, smart lady. Let's try it. So we'll go with our Stampin' Write markers, which is a dye-based ink. So I'm just doing a different color just to have it. This is Pacific Point. Make sure this is clean. Pacific Point. Donna, you are slightly better, because it is going a little bit better, but it's not really spreading out like it did. Let me try this one other thing. So Pacific Point, again, this is really, most of my markers I've had for a really long time. So I'm going to dip just a little bit into the alcohol. It's actually not quite as vivid when you're doing it this way with the alcohol. So a lot of Wisconsin there, for sure. Nope. So even the alcohol, or I'm sorry, the dye inks are kind of still reacting the same way. So good to know. We know that. Worst case scenario. It did bleed a little bit more with direct to markers, but I still don't know. And I think I have, this is some, let me see if this is water. Oh, glossy, but glossy isn't a bust. You think it's the too high percentage of alcohol? You know, I got the other stuff here, so hold on, I'll try it if you think it's going to work. Let's see. Let me try one more time, because I'm always willing to try something, because, you know, I didn't really think I would get so live this week. So I'm going to use my very little cup, which is my lid. So this is the 71% alcohol. Okay, this is the class called I Waste My Stuff So You Don't Have To. So there is the Pacific Point. It does bleed it a little bit, but it's still not blending it out that it's worthwhile, that it looks to me like it's doing anything fabulous. So And it's really lightening it up if you use the 71. Yeah. Which, it's okay. I mean, you know, that's how we kind of figure these things out, right? You pop this back in the lid. So we do have one other... Yeah, and it did dry pretty quickly, but we do have one other thing that we could try just to see how it does react, because since I have it here, I have some of the linen paper, so I'm gonna cut off a little piece. Just that way, worst case scenario, if it doesn't work, we don't use the whole piece. I'm gonna cut off just like a 2-inch piece. And this one is sometimes better, and I should have done this if you cut it upside down, kind of like when you cut the glitter or glimmer paper. So this is the linen paper. So let's just take a peek, and I'm gonna go with my ones that I know are a little darkened out. So this is the dark Bermuda Bay, and it's gonna take it a little bit differently, but I'll go back to the 91% alcohol. So it's kind of spreading it. This kind of gives you more of like a tie-dyed look because it's not really able to move it. So this will be really interesting. If anyone on here who is watching happens to have Yupo paper and you felt like trying, now this was dipped directly from the blend into the alcohol. So I'll show you the difference. So this was if you colored and then diluted. This was dipping in the alcohol, and then I'm going to go back and dilute this. If you have the Yupo paper and you're willing to give it a try and let us know how it works out, would love to see that. So let's see this. I'm going to try one other thing while I'm at it. I'm going to grab, so I have my blending brush, and I'm going to grab my Bermuda Bay. Oh, shaving cream technique. Awesome, Vicky. I totally forgot about that. That's a great one, too, on Glossy Cardstock. Super fun. Okay, so I have just a little bit of ink here. And this is kind of my favorite way to do it with the... So worst case scenario, even though this doesn't look super great and I have those droplets there, what I might do is I'm going to color this with my blending brush. This could always even be an accent piece. And I kind of like the way it looks. It does give you like a deep tone and then a bleed out. So I might add maybe a couple of them on the other side. Just that way I don't waste this piece and use it for like a focal background piece or something. But let me try. All right, so that's pretty evenly blended. Okay, and then I'm going to just back this stuff up. I'm going to take my, I'm going to do a couple different things. Hold on. So I had alcohol in here. So I'm going to try spritzer. So Yupo works well with Tim Holtz liquid alcohol. Okay, that's good to know. So I have the spritzer, so I'm just going to spritz this and see. Wait, you must have some glitter stuck in there. It's shimmering in a weird... If it's doing anything. I did get that little drip streak there, so there's that. But I'm going to try one more thing. Hold on, I'm going to get my blocks to hold this down a little bit. Which I have to tell you, this paper with the blocks, it did stay relatively flat. Remember we were talking about that yesterday. So, okay. So I have my same brush. I'm going to dip this. In the alcohol. And then, just because I want to get a little, since I kind of have these two dots here, I just want to do like a little bit of the same thing with like concentrating a dot. So we have like a little bit of splatter at the other end. Or I guess not uniform, but so it's kind of equally faded out. Okay, I don't want to do too much more. So I'm going to set this on the side. Again, that was my just the brush. I didn't fill it. Again, I just dipped and went from there. So we did this part, just in case you missed it, with the blending brush onto this after we kind of smooth it out. So let me just show you. And this does have adhesive on it, so I'm not really sure how it's going to affect that since it's wet with the alcohol. Granted, alcohol does dry, and obviously when I sprayed my my spritzer, it also had glitter in it. So I don't know if you can or can't see this, but here I can see it. It does have glimmer. So it's kind of cool. So we could do something with this, but this is definitely going to need some time to dry. Again, I did discuss yesterday that 91 or higher % alcohol is extremely flammable. So you don't want to heat this. You do want to just let it, allow it to dry. That way it dries fully. So that is one other thing. Now, since we're here and we're kind of just fooling around with stuff, I'm going to grab one more thing because we did also talk about this yesterday. And I'm just, again, being honest, it was easiest for me to grab a different watercolor paper. So I'm just going to trim down a piece. This is not Stampin' Up. So I'm just going to grab a 4x4 piece of watercolor paper, and I want to see what we can do with this. And then tomorrow we can move on to something else. Now, watercolor paper, just as a FYI, it does have generally two sides. One that's a little bit more toothy, so it has a little bit more of like a ridge side. Stampin' Up's paper is like this as well. And then one that's a little bit smoother. I am going to use the more toothy side, okay? What I'm going to do is kind of same thing. So I'm just going to, since I have some ink on here, I'm just going to brush kind of just to clean it off. And that way we'll kind of start with a not exactly white background. So that was just Bermuda Bay, whatever was left over here. Then I'm going to take my Bermuda Bay marker or my Stampin' Blend. So I'm going to dip that in alcohol. Oops. I don't want it to spill, and just kind of so it's not blending as easily, obviously, because this is paper. So there's that. And then I'm going to take and dip the same water painter into the alcohol and see if it spreads any at all. Nope. I'm gonna have to do something with this because it does look very like an angry face. So as I kind of thought, it doesn't spread mostly because it's not wet. So with alcohol, it's still keeping it dry, and watercolor paper kind of reacts more with water. I don't think I have any of my brushes that have water in them. Just take a peek. So I have a couple other ones over here. This one had just a teeny bit. I don't know how much this is going to squeeze out. So you can see the water from this, there's not a lot in here, from this water brush is reacting with that water that I laid down with the blending brush. But it's not really reacting with the alcohol marker. And again, it's probably because it is alcohol. So it's kind of just like in a dry spot. But, so let me see if I can wet this just a little bit more. I'm going to kind of make it like a little bit more puddled. So that is fairly wet. Now, clean that off. Now, if you take your Bermuda Bay blend, or not blend, your Stampin' Right marker, which is your dye-based marker, and you kind of touch around here, just touching a couple different spots. You could also do this with a re-inker. I'll show you that one as well. I always like to just give them a shake. Well, I wasn't prepared to necessarily do the watercolor paper because honestly I thought that the glossy cardstock would react differently, so or else I would have also had water ready. But you don't really have to over wet it. Watercolor paper is just kind of subjective to what your doing with it. The cool part about watercolor paper is, so if you add a little bit of water, you can see there adding it, it'll kind of help to bloom or bleed the color. And then it will pick up the other pieces. So if you drop, you don't really necessarily even have to really touch it too much to spread it around. The nice part about, though, when you're doing anything with watercolor specifically, is if you tape it to a hardboard, it will keep it flat, and then you can kind of flip it around. And the funny part is the watercolor. So if you notice, we have this like bullseye ring here. It's because that had alcohol and it's not letting the color go to that. That's why it's just sitting there. And then this part over here is dry. So if you could see this dry part, and watch this, if I add a little bit of water here, and then it can kind of pick up the water movement. I'll make a little connection. Look at that. It just bleeds right in there. So the water or the color will only really go where it is wet, which is one of the cool properties about watercolor paper. And then the other thing you can do with watercolor paper, whoops, it's kind of cool. Just going to set this on the side, is if you have these little spots where you kind of have too much, you can take a paper towel and soak up your ink. That way it kind of won't be oversaturated. Right here. Can pick up your ink, all these little places, and it just pulls it right in, and that actually will kind of help it to dry a little bit easier. But one other thing with watercolor paper is it never really looks the way it looks gonna look, the way it is going to look until it's dry. So I'm going to go ahead and heat this. I'm going to turn on my heat tool for a second. You could also tape your vellum down. I did get a bunch of hardboards from Amazon. Actually, when I finish doing this, I'll tell you. I'll show you what I got. They actually weren't too expensive. The other thing is with watercolor, you can also see you can blow the color around. So you could use a straw to blow it, or you could use your heat tool, but it will never go past the spot where it is dry. It will just sit and pool there. It does not go anywhere else. Since I did use a little bit of alcohol, I'm trying not to be too still with this. There's a good amount of water over it, so it shouldn't be a problem, but and then once it's really dry, so we kind of have like these little bullseye spots, we can actually go through and we could add something else again. So let me just show you what I mean. I'm going to do this just to, actually, you know what? I'm going to go with a different, I'm going to bring in just a little bit of color in Coastal Cabana to fill it in. Hi, Diana. Thank you for joining. So I'm going to take what's left of this, not very much water in here. Probably not very much at all. And these unscrew backwards, and that always kind of confuses me. There's a little bit. The other ones did one way. These must be from across the sea. So I'm just going to wet this, and I'm just going to kind of fill this in here, just so we don't have these gigantic bullseyes. So I'm just going in and filling in anything that still has white on it. And again, because this is a lighter color, it will dry lighter once it's actually dry. Okay, so let me just 1 second here. And I'm going to do one more thing because I think it should still react. So hold on 1 sec. I'm going to dry this. So even though that kind of was like a little bit of a dud looking thing, it doesn't look too bad now. Let me put this cap back on. And then I'm going to see if this does anything. So we have our alcohol. Just want to see if it kind of does that, still the droplet reacting. Because it still should lift the color a little bit. All right, so there's that. Let me see. I'm not just tap on this. Because if you did this with regular water, it will actually lift some of the color off. And then the other thing you could do, where is my good one? I remember I got this out yesterday. My Wink of Stella. You can do the same thing. I am going to squeeze this just a little to make sure it kind of comes out. So this may not have started out as a very good, because we started with those 3 dots, and remember those kind of ended up being the lighter dots, but it does kind of look cool. You could definitely use this as a background piece. So same thing with your Wink of Stella. You do need to allow it to dry. So when I blow on it, it is going to shift it a little bit. I'm going to do the heat tool one more time. It kind of moves it slightly. But Wink of Stella does take a little bit to dry as well, because it is a glycerin based, which that is the other thing I was going to say. You can mix it with a little bit of, you can put a little water, you could put a little bit of glycerin in it to refill it if you wanted to try to get some more out of it, or you could just use it as a paintbrush. So that's still nowhere near fully dry, because it's definitely a little bit wet on there still, but it does look pretty cool. So at least we were able to do a little bit of something with that one. So this, again, we kind of got a cool reaction. This is dry now. We got a cool reaction with using a combination of the blender brushes. So we did this with the ink pad. We kind of did a dip with a couple dots of the Stampin' Blend, and then we dropped some alcohol on there. So this is probably a cool background piece. You could use this for like a sea turtle or a water card of some sort. But also, just as FYI, the glossy cardstock is definitely... But what I am going to try to do, because I do have the shaving cream, I have shaving cream for the shaving cream technique. And that one that's really neat is what you do is you put your shaving cream down, and then you do re-inkers into it, and then you dip this in, and it kind of picks it up in certain spots. So that's a really cool technique as well. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. I definitely have done videos on that before, and it's really fun. So, oh, Gina, no, this is actually from Crafter Solutions. And I usually have a bazillion of their cards. You can find them on Etsy. I believe Lisa may still be on vacation, though, because unfortunately her husband passed away not so long ago. But they do have a shop on Etsy. And you can also find them on Facebook. But, oh, here it is. Donna, my little dear friend there, and I trimmed this down once to put it in. She actually sent this to me. So there is their information. I think she'll be taking orders again after July 10th, if I'm not mistaken. So, but this is called the Boss. It's an embossing gun holder. So it's really fun. They have lots of different colors. So really cool. So I would truly appreciate if you support them. They are an amazing company. So what I'm going to do is let's finish at least something here up. I'm interested to see if this is going to stick or not. So I think I'm going to do this. We might have to wait a little bit more for this to dry. But I'm going to go with Cabana. I don't think I have a whole card. Coastal Cabana. I'm going to put a little bit of something on there. And I'm going to do thick white. Because if any base I do, I always do thick white. Because it doesn't really stick. Or I should say, the white won't hold up as well. It won't stand, really. So I'm going to go ahead and score this at 4 1/4. And if Kathy is on here, she usually knows what the schedule is with Crafter Solutions. I feel like it was July 10th is what she said. So here's one. And I'm going to cut my Coastal Cabana down. And you know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to, just to give this a little something, I think I might run this through that, with that folder I was telling you guys about yesterday. Let me move my things out of the way over here. I got out, here it is, my old world folder, because I kind of thought this almost looked a little bit watery. So I'm going to do this while I am at it. I'm going to, right before I run it through, I'm going to spray this with the alcohol, and just happens to have that shimmer mist in it. So I'm going to spray this with this because it'll kind of loosen the paper up a little bit, and it'll give it a little bit more of a deep groove since it's a 3D folder. So let me grab, I'm going to put this over here so it doesn't get messed up. Grab my machine. Now I am still working with the Big Shot, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using my regular platform, and I believe it's my blue plate. Let me see. Let me try and run this through. I want to see if it works. I can't remember if it's my blue plate or if it's a plain plate. Hold on, I will tell you in just 1 second. Nope, it's the blue. So if you happen to still have the Big Shot, you could see it started to emboss it there. But if you happen to still have the Big Shot and you have the 3D folders, the ones that say Stampin' Up, you need this. The ones that don't say Stampin' Up, you just need a regular folder. So I'm going to just give this, oops, where did it go? Here it is. I'm going to give this a little spray. I move that off too. Kind of just lining this up. Now you can also spray it with water, which actually is more effective at making it wet, but this will do. So I'm just going to crank this through the Big Shot. Okay, kind of gives you a little bit deeper of an impression. And bonus, it gives you a little bit of shimmer, since I sprayed this with the shimmer paint. And now the other thing is, you may notice that you'll have a little bit of wet because of the way I sprayed it. I'm just going to wipe it off. You can rinse it under the sink if you wanted to, but quite honestly, with any ink, you can also put ink on here and then you can emboss it, so it will put the ink etches into it, and all you have to do is rinse it out. So it's really versatile for using it for that as well, which is pretty cool. All right, so we have this. I want this to have just a teeny bit to dry. And I have my thick white cardstock. All right, so I'm going to put that down, and I said I wanted to do like this little panel. So this I'm going to end up putting on here first, that way I can trim it. The only other thing I need are some sort of a sentiment. So just give me just 1 second. Just want to take a peek and see what kind of sea life stuff I have. Could do the whale. It needs something watery, but really not necessarily. Forgot all about this one. Have the seascape. We could do something with a little fish. Also, if you don't have this one, you could do the whale from Whale Done. I think the sea turtle will be really cute. Maybe I'll do the sea turtle. Ugh, decisions. I haven't done this one at all yet with the fish. Let me do the fish. I want to try it. I want to see what it looks like. Do that. And I wonder how those will stamp. Let's try one more thing out here before we get too crazy. Hopefully, we'll see. I'm going to put this on a spot where it's not really necessarily high in case I want to trim it. We'll see. So I have the fish, which I've never used this stamp set before. I'm going to go ahead and grab them. I'm going to do them in Night of Navy, Pacific Point, because I think they'll show up. One other tip with these images, when they have a very solid image, if you ever notice that you're not getting them to fully ink, same thing, make sure you clean it first, and you can always ink it with Versamark. Now, I don't know how this is going to stamp necessarily on linen, so we'll see. I'm going to put it kind of off in case it doesn't stamp well. That kind of looks cute. Actually stamped pretty well, considering. All right, so I'll do those. And then I'm going to do the fish. And I think I'm going to do the fish. I'm going to stamp him and I'm going to fussy cut him. But I want to do it on white. That way, where's my scrappy piece? It's still glossy. I want to do it on white because I'm going to kind of fussy cut him out. And I'm going to do him in like a goldenish. So it kind of looks like, a goldfish. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink it in mango and then maybe add a little bit of accenting in Cajun. Okay, he looks pretty good, but same thing. Because he's a little bit bigger, he's not inking super duper well, so I'm just going to clean this stamp. And then I'm going to stamp it with Versamark so you can see what I mean. So I'm just cleaning this off. I think this is almost ready to be washed out. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take my Versamark stamp pad and just lightly ink him. The Versamark is more of a tacky ink, so it kind of helps stuff stick to it a little bit better. And I'm going to ink him with mango. And then I want to grab a little bit of Cajun Craze with my marker, and I'm just going to kind of just do kind of like a couple touches. Oh my gosh, my marker's dry. No wonder. It was like looking like it wasn't really doing much. Hold on. Let me grab this. I've clearly had this one for such a long time that that's better. It's not really inking very well anymore. Most of these markers, which kind of is a pretty cool test, because I know a lot of the stuff we're using are consumables with the inks and whatnot, but I've had these for a really long time. All right, let's see what this looks like. So I'm just going to just exhale on it just to reactivate that ink. So there's that. So we'll go with that. He does need some sort of an eye though, so I'm going to have to figure out something for his eye. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it in the center with Pool Party, and then we'll just give him a little dot from, what is this? Gray Granite. Let's see what this looks like. Oh man. Gray Granite's pooping out on me too. I'm going to give him just a little dot of an eye. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I am going to fussy cut him quickly, and then we'll put this together. I'm just trying to think we could use, I haven't looked at that stamp set, so I don't really know what kind of sentiment choices we have. So I'm going to pull this out. And since he is sparkly, we could say he's a goldfish, he's a koi. I am going to put a little bit of Wink of Stella over, which will also help to blend that Cajun and the mango just a teeny little bit. I know I remember when we first saw the annual catalog, and I loved those diorama dies. Still haven't used them, but I had to have them. But I know they'll be super fun. I just haven't gotten around to using them yet. So if you want to take away a little bit of the white look to it, the other thing you could do, I'm just going to grab this because it happens to be handy with orange, and I'm going to go with just a teeny bit of crushed curry just to fill in the color, just a smidge. Just going to kind of, it'll take away a little bit of that white edge from the fish. Okay. So kind of killed a little bit of those really harsh white edges. There we go. And then, where is mine? This one is the good one. I'm going to do this, that way it'll get a second to dry while we start putting our card together. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shimmer. Remember that Wink of Stella does kind of act like a blender pen, so I'm trying to avoid that blue spot because I don't want to drag blue into the fish. Okay. Looks good. Looks good. All right, so let me grab my pieces here. I have this, 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 and this one I'm going to definitely put onto here before I adhere it. Only other thing I don't know is sentiment-wise, what can we do? Just thought you should know how wonderful you are. That's really cute. Let's do that. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to die cut it with some sort of a die that's not retired that I'm unaware of. I also like this. We could add this to the inside if you wanted to just add a little bit of something with the bubbles. We could put that on there. That would be cute. And let's see. All right, so what I'm going to do, and again, remember, I don't know how much this was going to stick, so this is kind of a trial. It should stick because it does have adhesive, but since we added the alcohol and the ink to it, I wasn't sure if it still was going to. And look, it does dye all the way through, which is pretty nice. Just going to hold this back. And since this has texture to it, I'm really pressing just to make sure it sticks. Looks pretty good. All right, so let me just grab my scissors. I'm going to trim off this little bit here. So at least we did still use something that we fooled around with. So even though it's not exactly the same technique with the linen paper, we did get a really cool effect with that. So that worked out well. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and put this onto my base. Let me just make sure. Try not to put this in anything goopy. Since this is a 3D folder, it definitely needs a good amount of glue. So you could go the route of doing tear and tape or tear and tape, listen to me. I don't mean to say tear and tape. You could do tape runner and liquid glue, but you definitely need to have a good amount of glue to get in all those little nooks and crannies. Okay, so I'm going to take this, flip it, and this is cut down by about a 1/4 inch. The embossing folder does kind of affect the sizing, so it may not be as exactly even as it was when I first trimmed it, but it was 4 by 5 1/4, give or take. We have that other little piece on there. Okay, and here's my fish, and then I want to just add the sentiment. So what do we have? We have the circles, we have the rectangles. I know we have some other shapes. That going in. I'm still bitter about those stitched shapes. It's because rectangles is not going to fit. You know what I should do? Here's what I should do. This would be perfect, I bet. Let me see if one fits. Yep. Here's my dioramas. I'm just going to grab a magnet sheet and put these on because I know they're not going to go back on here the way I want. See if it fits the small one. Nope, just a little too small. We'll use the little bit bigger one. Okay. All right, so where did my little paper go? Here it is. I just want to stamp this. And I think I'm going to go with Night of Navy for my words. And then we'll die cut them. And you can always do some layering with this if you wanted to. I've never used this before, so I definitely want to make sure it looks nice. Okay. And then I'm going to die cut it. So we'll just kind of estimate where we're going to put it. Oops, that looks good. There was one other little thing I saw here, so I'm just going to grab it. Do we have these little bubbles? So I'm just going to add the bubbles. They're not exactly fitting on here, but good enough. Do those in Coastal Cabana. We'll just kind of put some bubbles going up through the sentiment. Okay. And then I'm going to cut this out here. I'm going to just put a piece of tape to hold it, like so. Just had to swap back over to my regular magnetic platform. So that's just 2 plates and the magnetic platform. In case like me, you're still using your Big Shot. Okay, save my tape. And I'm going to do them with dimensionals just because I think it deserves it. You could even, if you have some wobblers handy, I know how we are all so fond of wobblers, because I certainly am. You could do some wobblers with the fish or with the sentiment if you wanted to. Be kind of cute. I feel like I need a little snippy piece of this. Just for down here. And one more piece for the tail. All right, all I want to do is just piece this together. So again, today, in case you're coming in late, we did learn that you cannot use your Stampin' Blends and the alcohol technique on glossy cardstock. It just does not work. I'm kind of torn because I feel like I'm covering up some of these fish. I probably should have stamped a couple more of them up there. I was afraid it wasn't going to look. Oh, I'll put it right here. Oh, oops, there went in a pile. And we did do a little bit of mixing with the alcohol and the blends. This was linen paper. We also showed it on watercolor paper. This was just my little scrap piece left. I'll show you this so you know what not to do here on this one. So this one we ended up with watercolor paper, alcohol, a very little bit of water because that's all I had, and then some Wink of Stella, kind of a combo. We did some direct Stampin' Blends to this and then bled it out. We did the blending brushes and then kind of softened it a little bit with the water painters. I can never remember what these darn things are called. We have so many different names for things. Makes it very confusing. And then we still have the all-time, I think the coolest part was this with the vellum. And you could try, definitely, Donna. I know you mentioned taping your vellum down. You could certainly do that. And that's the other thing I was going to show you. Hold on one sec. Let me pull this last bin down and then we'll wrap it up. But I got these because we actually used them for a class. I'm not sure if you can find them if you want to look that specific thing up on Amazon. But these are 6x6 hardboard panels. So what you would do, and I'll show you, we've used these for watercolor, but what you would do is you'll take your whatever you're going to do. So let's just use this for example. And you would take, I wouldn't use purple tape. I usually use the green tape. Purple tape probably would work, but it's not very cheap. So that's why I would use something different. But you kind of tape the edge of the whole strip down. So show you what I mean. So if you have this piece here and you'll take your painter's frog tape, just grab a piece and show you. And you can actually rip this in half because you don't really need the whole thing. And then what you'll do is just tape this down, just like so, okay? And then the same for the top. Obviously, you're going to trim the pieces off, but maybe that's not obvious, so maybe I should tell you. But what you want to do is if you tape this down before you start, it'll help to keep your paper flatter. This is more so designed for when you're doing watercolor, and you do want to do all four sides because eventually something will curl up from the opposite direction. But you tape all four sides down, and then when you let it dry, completely finish working with it, when you pull your tape off, just as an FYI, you do want to pull it towards the tape, not this way. You don't want to go this way. You want to peel the tape off and kind of stick to itself. The longer it's on there, it is a teeny bit harder to get off, but it is still pretty easy to get off. But as long as you pull it to itself. And then you will end up with a border around. So if you're really particular with it, you can actually make your border symmetrical, and then you wouldn't even have to trim it down. So you could use the whole piece. But regardless, these were pretty cheap. I think, again, I got 12 of them. So they were on Amazon, pretty reasonable for 12 boards. Not that you need 12 boards, but they were pretty reasonable. Maybe you could get a group of crafty friends to go on them together, and then you could split them. So this is the card we ended up with from our linen paper. We have some of our leftovers from yesterday. Glossy. I'm going to try to do something. What I might try and do is do the shaving cream technique over top of this to see if it will pick up some other inks. I probably would just have to try and do it in the similar tones, maybe. Might be a good idea. But I hope you all have enjoyed this today. It was definitely useful for me to learn some new things with this alcohol ink, and I really love this. This one I think was the coolest. Again, this is the one where we dipped the Stampin Blends directly into the alcohol and put it on there and then bled it afterwards. It really has the most concentrated color compared to the others. So we just look at these from yesterday. And this one obviously isn't on white, so it's a little bit harder to tell, but it does have a really nicely concentrated color. It's very, very pretty. I love this. This one was with the Cajun, the mango, the dark pumpkin, and there was another one that was dark too. I can't remember what it is right now, but that was really pretty. If you missed this yesterday, and then we added a little bit of Bermuda Bay. If you missed this yesterday, go watch yesterday's video. You can either find it on YouTube or here on Facebook, and you can see how we did this. This one was like the last ditch effort at the end when we were figuring out if we could still use the Stampin' Blends again after we used them for other projects. So I thank you guys very much for joining me again. I am going to attempt to go live again tomorrow. What I'll do is maybe if you have an idea, something you want to see, please let me know. I'm always happy to take suggestions. Maybe you're getting tired of the alcohol ink. I think we've used it a good amount, which is cool because we can, you know, find more uses for one thing, which I always like to do. But if there's something you'd like to see done, shoot me an email or send me a message here on Facebook. There is a messenger that I do check, so please feel free to do that. If you send me an email, you can send it to rachthestamper@gmail.com. Those are, some reason, come a little bit quicker than the Facebook messages. Don't take it personally. It just seems to be the way Facebook communicates things lately. Is kind of willy-nilly at best. But if you'd like to see something else, let me know. Always open to take suggestions. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Nancy. I tried to experiment that way you all don't have to waste your stuff, because God knows I've got gobs of stuff here so we can go through plenty of things, and I still have plenty of things left over to use. So that's what I'm saying. If there's something you want to see done, just send me a message and let me know, and we can add it in. I am going to try to go live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm going to try again Friday. So hopefully we'll get 5 days in a row. Now, I'm not going to be able to do 5 days in a row from here on after, but at least we got a good start, and then we'll figure out what works from there. Thank you guys so much for watching and for joining me day after day. I appreciate it. Remember, tomorrow is the Stampin' Up! $50 equals free shipping in the United States. So if there's something you'd like to get your wish list together, I'd love for you to shop with me if you have something you'd like to get and you don't already have a demonstrator. And you can get all these supplies in my online store, Rachthestamper.stampinup.net. Thank you guys for watching.